Welcome to Kicking Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb with host Christina Nation, the ultimate guide for parents navigating the challenging yet rewarding journey of raising teenagers. Join your host Christina as she dives deep into the world of adolescence, tackling everything from academic pressures and social dynamics to mental health and independence. So please, welcome the host of Kicking Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb, Christina Nation.
Hello and welcome to Kick Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb. I'm your host, Christina Nation, and we are streaming on Bold Brave TV. I am super excited today as this is our first launch show, and I have an amazing guest with me. So thank you for being here. All right, so today I have with me Casey O'Rourke, who is a mentor of mine. But before I introduce her, I just want to introduce myself since this is my first show. This is our first episode, and as I said, I'm Christina Nation, and I am a best-selling author, an international speaker, and a parent coach. I coach parents of teens who are struggling with depression and help them learn to connect with, support, and advocate for their teens. And I'm most importantly a mom of four. My oldest son is about to be 29. Can you believe that? 29. I can't believe it. And my youngest is 16. I'm also a foster mom and I host international students. So I have been, raised quite a few kids through the adolescent years, and I know what a challenging time it can be, and at the same time, such a rewarding time. So I hope that this show brings to you lots of value, lots of takeaways, and just to know that, that we get it. It's tough and we need to support each other. So that's what we're here to do. All right. So like I said, I have my guest, Casey O'Rourke, and because this is my first show, I just realized that I am missing her bio. Um, but I'm going to go with what I know about her. And she is amazing. She is a mentor of mine. She is a positive discipline trainer. She is the podcast host of Joyful Courage. And if you have not heard this podcast, you definitely have to tune in. It is one of my favorites for sure. She's also an author of her book, Calming the Drama. And let's see, she is the mom of two. She just launched two young adults out into the big world. And like I said, one thing we have in common is that we both have a background in positive discipline. She is a lead trainer for positive discipline. And I just like to say, welcome, Casey. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I just want to say, so I did write a book and it's called Joyful Courage, Calming the Drama and Taking Control of Your Parenting Journey. So you got part of it. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks to everyone who's watching and listening, whether you're live or watching or listening later. I'm thrilled to be here. And yeah, I just yesterday sent my youngest back to college. He's in his first year at the University of Arizona. My daughter will be 22 next weekend and we live in Bellingham. She lives about 15 minutes away and is in community college with her sights on medical school. And both kids are doing amazing, even as I look back not too long ago and was in the weeds of, oh my God, how will they ever be able to be on their own? They made it. They're making it. So it's good.
That's so great because that's how I wanted to start off today, is just by saying, what does it feel like? Because I know, like you said, there's so many of our parents that might be watching that, maybe they're just reaching adolescence and they're like, what the, you know,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
maybe their kids are teens and they're like just in the middle of it and they just don't see getting to the other side, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know my story, and I'll just share a little bit. My oldest really struggled. I mean, adolescence and mental health breakdown collided, and she actually dropped out of school in 11th grade. We navigated substance use, intense anxiety where she wouldn't leave the house. It was rough there. She danced with an eating disorder, and what we were able to get the support that she needed, that I needed, and make it through. And I think back to that time, and I work with a lot of parents who are in that kind of darkness and really are having a difficult time seeing into the future. And what I've learned, being on this side of it and seeing my daughter truly thriving. I mean, she is like the coolest person. I think about myself at her age, and I was just skimming the surface, and she is so deep and thoughtful and self-aware and driven. It's really, and I attribute a lot of that to what she's been through. I think her, the depths of personal growth and development that she had to go through to come out of where she was is really serving her now in a lot of ways. And I think, I have a really good friend. I bring him up a lot because he asked me one time, you know, what's the nutshell of the whole parenting teens thing? What's the quick and easy advice? And I said to him, don't make it worse. Like, don't make it worse. I watch and I coach and I facilitate parents who are deeply loving and just want the best for their kids. And from the outside looking in, it's like, oh my gosh, if you could only see how you're feeding into what's hard for you. Right. So yeah, it's amazing to be on this side. And it's important, I think, to remember that the teen years are just a snapshot. They're just a thread in the tapestry of our kids' entire life story. And as long as we can kind of find some levity there, some buoyancy, and remember that, we can be there for them in a way that helps them move through it and not make it worse.
I love that. And one of my favorite podcasts, well, there's a couple where you had your daughter on the podcast, and I just think that's so amazing that she's able to, speak out there and use her story to help so many other families. So that's just amazing. Quite a testament.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
been so incredibly generous for a kid that is, definitely anxiety is part of her wiring. She has been so generous with sharing her story and her experience. She's been on 4 times. The first time she was 17 and really still very much in a lot of tough she was still in her healing process.
Mm.
But she was so articulate, and I've had a lot of parents reach out to me after listening to that particular show with so much gratitude because Rowan was so willing and able to explain her experience. And a lot of times parents with kids who are having a hard time, their kids aren't able to put into words what they're moving through. And so Rowan's sharing really helps people understand their own kids better, which is such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yes. All right. Well, I reached out to my community and asked them some questions that they wanted me to focus on with our time together. And so I think one of the things I'd like to just start with is what are some of those main principles that underpin your approach to parenting?
The main principles. Well, for me, I focus a lot on supporting parents in building relationship with their kiddos. And also, even inside of that, recognizing that that doesn't mean that it doesn't have to look like having a kiddo that is pouring their heart out, telling you everything, not making any mistakes, but instead it's really on our end coming from a place of curiosity, of non-judgment. I think our role as parent is to ask questions that support our teenagers in growing their ability, their critical thinking abilities. So, in as you know, with positive discipline, one of the pillars of positive discipline is mistakes are opportunities to learn. And the teenage years, the adolescent years, are years for making mistakes, right? It
Yeah.
is important for our kiddos to make mistakes, because while we can share tons of wisdom, while, we talk so much, really where our kids learn most is through the experiences that they're having, and having a space to consider and process those experiences that feels safe and non-judgmental, which means we parents really get to do the work of showing up, of being curious, of dropping our assumptions and judgments at the door, and really being with our kids, right? And really meeting them where they're at, and not assuming that we actually know better, which is a tough one to swallow. But even though we all were teenagers, we weren't our teenagers, and they have their own individual lenses that they are making meaning through. And it's our job to not only get curious about their lens, but to help them recognize that they have a lens, right? That they are making meaning, and, helping them think about their thinking, I think is such an important gift and skill that we get to help them develop. So, relationship, curiosity, deep listening, um, embracing mistakes, not taking them personally. This is like the landmines for taking things personally are huge during this time.
Definitely.
Right. So while we're showing up for our kids, I think the other thing that's so important during this time, if we haven't already begun our own personal growth journey, now is the time, right? Because so much of what we're reacting to when it comes to our teens, whether it's things like them telling us that they were left out from their friends, or they've made some huge mistake, or they finding out they're the bully, or finding out they're experimenting with something, or whatever, like pick your challenge, right? All of that is like I think about like a musical instrument, like a guitar, and there's these strings, right? And we have our individual conditioned strings, and when of our own pain and our own hurt and our own experiences, and then we watch these kids having their experiences, and they might kind of be plucking at what is our own pain and hurt, and then we react from that place, and it's not useful for our teenagers. So I think it's a major thing that I work on with parents is just recognizing their own internal landscape and doing the work to heal and process, and or even just recognize, oh, am I responding to my kid right now and their behavior, or am I responding from something old inside of me that's getting activated because of my kiddos behavior or choices? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is such an important point is, you know, part of parenting, I think the purpose of parenting is to grow ourselves, right? So like you said, first doing that personal work and learning and growing, and no one is our bigger teacher than our children, right? And for someone like me, is like, you know, I have 4 kids, and by the time my daughter started struggling, I had already had to gone through the adolescent years with two boys and thought I had parenting down, thought I had, positive discipline down, and here we go. And then my daughter started struggling, right? So when we think we got it down, then God gives us another learning experience and another child with a different journey, right?
Yeah. I have a good friend that talks about like that whole learning through life as we're on a spiral. It's not linear. It's a spiral. And as we move around the spiral and we hit a lesson and we move through it, hopefully grow through it, expand, broaden our perspective, and then we're good and we move along. And then there's the same lesson in a different package.
Yes.
Right? We know a little bit more, but we're intersecting with it differently because we're different.
Yeah.
And there's no place to land. There's no like, okay, now it's all figured out and smooth sailing from here because, then something else happens. Then somebody you love is sick or there's a job loss or, life just continues to unfold. And so the more we can take care of our internal experience and how we're meeting life unfolding, I think the more that we can be in that place of learning and growth instead of stuck and suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's why it's so important too to give up that mama guilt, right? I know I just had the kids here for Christmas and my oldest son was like, he was making remarks about how different, because my youngest now is 16, my oldest is 29, right? And so he was making remarks about how different my youngest son had it than he had it, right?
For
And
sure.
he was like, oh yeah, I had to live, share a room with my brother until I moved out, and he's got this big, huge room in the house, and I had to live with mom, being a young teenage mom, and now look at her writing books and being a parent coach, like what the,
Yeah. It's 13 years later, kid.
Exactly. And then now I think my daughter is expecting, and so I am about to be a grandma, and I am beyond excited, and all I can think about is like, wow, I get another chance to do it even better. I'm going to be even better. I'm going to be an amazing grandma, and it's just so exciting. But we first have to give up that guilt of not having it perfect, not, that we're still learning and growing, and we're going to continue to learn and grow, and we just show up the best that we can and keep trying to, strive to be better. Like you said, one of the things in your bio was you are a self-improvement junkie, right? I love that.
Yes, I love it.
We just got to keep striving.
Well, just on that note, of perfection and wanting everything to be great, like, I had something. I just think that our kids, it's so interesting, right? Like they all have different experiences and they're all perfect for them. Rowan being the oldest and being the one that was the most challenging for me, I think was divine. I think that was perfect, right? Her brother's experience was to witness that. How did that serve him? I don't, it's not like you can, perfectly figure out scientifically how that served him or didn't serve him. But I think our kids I know what I was going to say. Sorry about that. I think it's so important that we just get to show up genuine and authentic. When there's something like a comparison, when you have that broad expanse of years between kids and they notice the difference, to get to say to them, like, I know, right? Isn't it wild? 13 years makes such a difference. We both have grown so much. And when my kids were both home, over the holidays, and we had our last night all together, and I had, run out of my hormones. Hello, menopause and adolescence, good times. And I was grumpy. And I was so irritated by myself that I was like, oh my gosh, this is our last time hanging out until Ian comes back from college. And I want to kill everyone. Everybody is so annoying to me right now. And I am very open. Like, I can't pretend. I'm not a good pretender.
Mhm.
And so as I was kind of going upstairs, because I knew I just needed to, I gave my love. I was like, okay, I'm going to peace out. And I said to the kids, sorry, I was so grumpy at the table. And Rowan, she was like, it's okay, Mom. It's okay. We know we were bugging you. And, she was just so forgiving and generous. And I think when we remember that we don't need to hide who we are from our kids, especially when they're teenagers, because teenagers have incredible BS radars, right? And they don't want us polished, they want us real. And I think when we can be real and when we can be authentic, we're really modeling for them that life is the ebb and the flow. Life is the spiral. Life isn't always perfect, actually, rarely is perfect, but it is a place where we get to be in relationship with each other and talk about what we need and talk about what our experiences are and make things right when things go sideways or we're not showing up the way we want to be. We get to be real. And I think that's really powerful for our kids.
Yes, yes. And that's what I love about you so much in your work and your podcast, and is just how real and authentic you are. And that you can say, like you always say, life is messy, right? And yes, like you've said, and I say with my parents, yes, I may be a parent coach, but I'm not perfect, right? I'm still making mistakes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like positive discipline teaches us, it's, those mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow. And so we get to be in the messiness of it, and we get to learn from it, and we get to help guide them through it, and they learn and grow. And that's what this parenting is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. What was another question? Oh, so speaking of the messiness of the teen years, lots of parents are always asking, like, what do you see are some of the most common challenges? I know you named a few earlier, but what are some of the common challenges you're seeing in the teen years nowadays?
Well, I mean, people that I work with come to me because it's going down, right? So that's my pool. And sorry about my voice. I'm getting over a cold. So I think something that is showing up in my community, there's, never ending conversation around screens and phones and social media. So that's a nightmare. And, teen years, there's the individuation that's happening and the pulling away that's really challenging for parents to be with
Mhm.
and to be an acceptance of. Um, Substance use. I mean, I think with our kids growing up in a time where weed is legal, we're seeing a lot more experience. It's just more normalized. Um, Whereas, when we were teenagers, what was more normalized was alcohol. Kind of weeds kind of come up there with that as well. What are some other things that I see? I think, the hardest piece is, well, not the hardest piece, but I think a place that's really challenging for parents is just going back to that not knowing. Like, we have access to so much information, whether it's the school portal or Life 360 or, getting into their phones and reading their text messages. I mean, can you imagine your parents listening to your conversations on the phone when you were a teenager? Oh my God, that would have been awful. But we have so much access, and I think that access, again, has been normalized. And so our generation of parents who have teenagers right now, we want to know everything. And when we don't know everything, we freak out, right? Or
Mhm.
we find out everything and we shouldn't. Like, we don't need to know everything. So there's this weird information madness that exists right now. And we're real quick to say, but there's so much out there that isn't safe, and we need to know where they are, and we need to know who they're talking to, and we need to monitor all these things. And I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a both and, but I think at the heart of it is being able to talk to our kids about where they're going and who they're with, and what they're doing in a way that that feels safe for them to share. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it always goes back to relationship with
Yeah.
me, but it's all the
Exactly.
same stuff, right? It's like substance use and screens and back talk and school issues.
Yeah, and I think that's like the biggest difference between my first son and the rest of the kids is with him I was still in that micromanaging, having to know every move he was making, having to, constantly checking the school website for every assignment that was turned in, and like you said, that information overload, and just learning to let go. I think
Yeah.
that was my biggest lesson in parenting teens, is learning to let go and not micromanage and not have to know every single thing. And a lot of that has to do with not parenting in fear, right? Because the
Exactly.
reason we do that, reason we go to control, is because we're parenting in fear, because
Yeah.
we know the dangers out there. And so it's
Right.
hard. It's so hard, but that's what we have to do, is just have faith in them, that
Right.
they're going to make the decisions that are right for them. And if they don't, they're going to learn from that mistake.
Yeah.
And just yeah, that's
Well,
definitely the biggest.
yeah, and this is a runway. Like middle school, obviously 7th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade is going to look different than 11th and 12th grade, and
Mhm.
where the guardrails are. But this is a runway towards them being on their own
Yeah.
without us right over their shoulder. So, when Ian, my youngest, was a senior last year, when something that I said to him was, okay, I'm going to I'm going to do my best to parent a year ahead, which means there's going to be like a lot of freedom this year. We took the, well, did I? I think it was about halfway through the year, and the Ian was like, Mom, you're parenting a year ahead. Maybe you should like take my phone turns off at a certain time limit off, and we'll see how I do. So there was that I didn't really want to let go of. But I was just really open as much as possible to be like, you're going to be on your own away at college next year. So let's practice managing all your stuff before you're actually there.
Yeah.
And that was really important to me. And we talked about things like, I would say to him, what's going on in school? How are your grades? What are you expecting, for grades when the report cards come out? When we turned off the limits on his phone, we'd have lots of conversations around, how's your screen time? Let's compare. My screen time often isn't so great. So it wasn't a threatening situation. Often he was looking better than I was. But we just normalized these conversations. And my goal was to help him learn to embed these kind of self-reflections and self-awarenesses, so that now he's all the way down in Tucson. He's many states away in school. I want him to pause and think, okay, what's going on in this class? How am I doing? Am I moving in the direction that I want to go in? What can I be doing differently? How's my screen time? Is this getting in my way? Like, I want him to be asking himself those questions, which is a big ask. He's not, I mean, he's only 19, but it's the process of learning to be ever more self-reflective around our own behavior that I wanted him to start practicing before he left, which requires, like you said, letting go, right? Being willing to let go, being willing to watch him flounder a little bit. He took a college class last year, and it was like 2 weeks till the end of the quarter. And he came to me and he said, so I have a D. And I said, okay, well, this is awesome. you, for the first time ever, get to experience the scramble and
Mm-hmm.
pulling it off, right? So the next 2 weeks, you're going to, you get, if you want to pass this class, which he did, you get to really lean in and experience what it takes to pull it off last minute.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah, important
we all know
skill.
what it is. I was the queen of last minute pulling it off. So I was like, okay, let's go, buddy. Welcome to this world.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't like, how dare you, or what do you mean, or anger from me. It was really like, all right,
Yeah. Yeah.
here we go. What do you need? How can I support? And he
Right.
pulled it off. Got to see.
Yeah. There you go. And like you said, it's not judging, right? Like I
Right.
think a lot of times my eldest son again would say that he felt I was judgmental. And here I thought like I'm the most, least judgmental person I know, but he's still his, perspective is that I was judgmental. And that's when they don't want to come to us. But when they can come to us and let them know that they're having a hard time or they're struggling or they've made a mistake, and we can come at it without judgment and without being critical, and just help them explore how they can solve their problem. All right, so I love
And I'm
that.
super judgmental, by the way, and critical. Okay. Like in my mind, I was like, what the hell, dude? Like, come on. I mean, and my kids know that too. I mean, they can tune in, and I'll check myself, or Rowan's really good at checking me because, my face tells the story of what's going on internally. So I do want to say to anybody that's listening or watching, like, it's no small feat to show up in non-judgment. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll have to say, like, woof, I have a lot. There was one time where Ian shared something pretty major with me and pretty scary that he had tried out. And I was like, I managed to stay calm and ask questions. And about halfway through the conversation, I said to him, like, I don't want you to think that me showing up calm right now and open to having this conversation means that I'm not totally freaking out
Mhm.
because I am freaking out. This scares the hell out of me. But what's more important to me is to help you process and reflect on.
Yeah.
He was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I think, again, it comes back to like, be authentic and be real,
Yeah.
or it could sound like, oh man, I want to tell you all the ways that was the worst possible thing that you could do.
Mhm.
I have a lot of judgment about this. And
Yeah.
I know that that's not what you need. So
Yeah.
let me take care of myself so I can get in a good headspace. And let's talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is scary. And
Yeah,
that's
they do stupid things. They do stupid things.
yeah. 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 All right, let's see here. So, speaking of some of those, another question I got from a lot of parents is what are some strategies that you would recommend for parents to help their teens with those difficult emotions?
Well, and came up actually in a interview that I did with Julietta Skoog, my colleague and partner at Sproutable. We talked about how important it is when our kids come to us or are having those difficult emotions to respond in a way that sends the message of like faith in them, right? I think the very first place that we get to go is recognizing how their difficult emotions are making us feel and managing that, right? Because when they come to us and they're full of feeling, whether it's embarrassment or shame or sadness or anger, and we meet them, in panic mode, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, right? That's so terrible. Then we're just kind of feeding it. The feedback loop is, you know, you should feel that way. This is a big deal, right? And when we can hold instead, like, wow, allowing their feelings to be theirs, like, that does sound really hard. That does sound really challenging. Tell me more about that, right? And just be there to listen, but also not freaking out and really like sending the energetic message of like, this is a snapshot. This is a moment in time. I believe you that this is hard. And I have faith in you that you can be with this, sit with this, and move through this. I think that's the first thing that's really important,
Yeah.
right? Because it is
Yeah.
hard to see our kids struggle, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And some of them are really struggling. You and I both have daughters that really, I mean, it was what they needed was beyond what we could offer.
Right.
It-
Right.
but getting in the hole with them isn't necessarily going to help them recognize that they can get out,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, which was it always starts with us, right? And role modeling. So in order for us to be with them in that moment, to be that calm in that moment with them, we have to do our own work first, right? And we have to be practicing our own emotion regulation, our own mindfulness. And then we can co-regulate with them and practice those skills with them so that we
Yeah.
can best support them. Right.
And I think something to remember too when our kids are having big emotions, it's so uncomfortable for us that we want to move them out of it as fast as possible.
Mhm.
And what I have learned, through my work and with my daughter is that it's really dismissive,
Mhm.
right? Like they want us to see them and witness them where they're at and take longer than it feels comfortable to just be there. And
Mhm.
then if you have some thoughts, if you have some advice, if you have some questions, ask permission, right? Before you launch into, why don't you just try this? I learned through my experience,
Yeah.
ask, what do you need right now? Do you need me to just sit here and be near you? Do you want to hear my thoughts? Do you want to try to problem solve? What do you need? And
Yeah.
sometimes the answer is, I don't know. Right?
Mhm.
In which case
Yeah.
you get to say, okay, then let's just sit here for a while.
Mhm. Yeah. I love that, and it's so important. And I actually just read in a book, I can't remember what I'm reading so many right now, but it said the number one thing that teens feel why they don't go to their parents is because they're dismissive, because they dismiss their feelings.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you brought up that point, and just being okay with what they're feeling and just being there with them and asking them. I have so many parents that ask me, it's like, ask them, what do you need from me right now? What can
Yeah.
I do to best support you? And
Yeah.
parents are all the times like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, just ask them. Ask them.
Yeah. And I think it's also important outside of the moment to remember part of what we can be doing all the time is talking about coping skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not like, I'm going to give you a lesson on coping skills right now, but instead, coming home from work or coming home from running errands and saying, oh my gosh, this happened today and it made me feel this way. And so, what I did is I sat in the car and I turned on this certain kind of music and it helped me calm down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, man, I was feeling so overwhelmed by looking at the bills and recognizing all these things that I needed to take care of and I didn't want to take care of it. And so I sat outside in the sun for a little while and just calmed my nervous system so that I could come back in and just take care of it. And turns out it wasn't that big of a deal. I think it's really important to just weave into the everyday
Mm-hmm.
how we are how we're coping with
Yeah.
life's stuff, right?
Yeah.
In a very normalized way. And then, and remember too, I think this is really important, especially, I mean, teenagers are dismissed We
Mhm.
are one big eye roll to teenagers, and it's
Mhm.
rude, frankly. They are so creative and resourceful, and it's important to remember they're at the beginning, right? They're new to a lot of what's starting to become adult decision making. They don't have a lot of experience to draw from. So it makes sense, right? It makes sense that that they have limited perspective. It's not something to dismiss, it's something to remember. They're at the
Right.
start. And what they need are mentors, they need guides, they don't need critics,
Mhm.
right? They don't need drill sergeants.
Right. Right. Yes, so important. So another thing that I was asked, and I think is so important, especially as we're talking, our own daughter struggled, and so many teens are struggling with their mental health right now. So many of all of us are struggling, and like you said, so important to be modeling and teaching those coping skills. But what are some other ways that we can teach them resilience? So specifically, what role does resilience play in parenting, and how can we help them develop this trait?
Well, I think a lot of what we've already talked about is where resilience is born. I don't think we can teach them resilience. I think that we move through life and we meet challenges, and having someone who witnesses us and is curious about our experience and supports us in some self-reflection about the experience, I think that's where resilience is strengthened. I think they already have resilience in a lot of ways, and I think the teen years just offer a lot of opportunity for them to continue to draw from it. Um, and and it's hard. Like, again, I think that when we show up having faith that they can grow through what they're going through, I think that is an opportunity for them to lean into their own resilience. I think when we again model what it looks like to bounce back when things are hard, I think that's another layer of resilience development, is seeing the healthy adults in their life managing and navigating what's hard, and calling it out when you see it. Like, wow, that was a tough challenge, and you pulled it off.
Yeah.
Talking about, do you know what resilience is? Here's where I see you being resilient. Where would you like to strengthen your resilience? So I don't know that there's a perfect answer to that. I think it's I think it's really about the kid in front of us and really seeing them. And because they don't always, they're not moving through the world like, look at me and my life skills. But
Right.
we get to point it out when we see it. We get to
Yeah.
say, man, and I still do that, especially with Rowan. One thing that social media does offer is all those memories.
Yeah.
It's like looking back at pictures that come up on social media, and I'll screenshot it and send it to Rowan, and I'll say to her, like, man, this feels like it was so long ago, but it also feels like just yesterday. And I'm so inspired by what you're doing now and everything you've created for yourself. So, yeah, does that answer the question? I know it's not
It
neat.
does. It does, and I absolutely agree. And one thing also that I would add is that you touched on earlier is not trying to fix every problem and rescue them from every problem. If we can, instead, like you said, help them process and learn from and reflect on, instead of swooping in and fixing it all and rescuing them, and then over time, that's how they learn to be more resilient. That's how they grow. It's like a resilience muscle, right? And it has to be exercised in order to get stronger. And so I think, just like you're saying, using all of those opportunities as teaching moments, and not rescue them from the natural consequences and having them experience and learn from that and then reflecting on it
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think that in checking our own definition of resilience,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, just the fact that they get up in the morning and walk the halls of a middle school or a high school, like, I mean, resilience, it already exists. I don't
Yeah.
care who your kid is,
Yeah.
right? There is already resilience has already been birthed in a lot of maybe small ways. So become an investigator and start to for yourself, right? And start to really acknowledge all the different ways that resilience already exists. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we call it empowering encouragement, right? When
Mm-hmm.
we can name a skill or a quality and remind them, right? Like, hey, bud, this is a really hard assignment. I see that. But I also saw you out in the driveway and you must have shot the basketball 50 times trying
Mm-hmm.
to trying to get really good at that free throw and you missed a lot, but you kept at it. And that's perseverance, right?
Yeah.
And you can use that you used in the driveway right here on this math assignment, right? Or, so start naming what you see, the qualities that you see, and reminding your kids like that doesn't just exist over here. You can actually
Yeah.
bring it to life in this challenge that you're having as well.
Yeah. I love that for sure. All right. Well, we're wrapping up. So let me ask one last, and that is what is one piece of advice you would give parents who are struggling with their teenagers' behavior or emotional well being?
I mean, I think the
It's
first
so
thing
big,
is,
right?
yeah,
Big question.
we'll solve it for you. I think something that's really important is, and this, I don't think either of us can determine the answer to this, but I think on one hand, it's really important to be really honest with yourself and figure out, is this something that is bigger than your family can hold, right? So when you said really struggling, so is this something that you need outside support for?
Right.
And if so, go find it. And maybe
Mhm.
it's a parent coach like Christina or I, or maybe it's a therapist, right? Maybe it's a psychiatrist. I am pro medication, I'm pro talk therapy, I'm pro all the things that exist that help us human through life. So I think that's one piece. And I think the other piece is if there's a real big struggle happening, then I would also encourage you to do some deep, honest self reflection around your role in it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And perhaps there are places where you can acknowledge that you are feeding into the current. Requires a lot of vulnerability, which is scary to
Mhm.
bring to a teenager who's ornery. But, take
Mhm.
a look at where are you playing? What's the part that you're playing? How can you acknowledge it and make it right? And, baby steps back to relationship, which can look like planning some one-on-one time, even if you're not talking, even if it's 5 minutes, time that you can be near each other. But I think in that place, it's a really tough place, but it requires a reset.
Mhm.
Requires a reset. And the only person that will encourage that reset is going to be the parent.
Mhm.
So doing your work around what does reset look like for you and the dynamic that you're in?
Yeah.
It's way
Yeah.
bigger
I love
than
that. Mhm. Yeah, and that's what I always, with my parents who have teens are struggling with depression, it is big, right? This is big struggle. So whether we're talking depression or anxiety or alcohol use or addiction or any of those big challenges is it does take a village. It does take a whole
Oh yeah.
support network. So like you said, yes, your parent coach, but yes, your therapist, yes, your school counselor, yes, your doctor, yes, your, it takes all of them. But then at the same time, when you are advocating for your teen and getting all of that support in place, I love what you said. Don't forget about your role and how you're contributing. And that's why I work with the parents on what can they do. Yes, you want your teen to see a counselor if that's what they choose to do. Yes, you want to get the support at school, but what can you do at home as well? And what can, how can you best support? And so I love that you said that because yeah, being vulnerable enough to admit that there's, some ways that you are contributing, and then looking at all the different ways that you can best support. So,
And
yeah.
take care of yourself, because it's
Yeah.
hard.
Oh,
It's
yes.
so hard. And I think actually listening to you kind of reflect back, I think all the things that we've talked about over the last hour are all the last hour is really the answer to your last question, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think taking care of ourselves is so important. I remember I used to take long walks and
Mm-hmm.
I would do voice memos, and I would just blah. I would just unload how I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling with no filter and capture it. I mean, I don't know what I thought I was going to do with it, but there was something about talking out loud about, because it was dark over here. I was
Yeah.
like, what is happening right now? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was really, really, really hard. And, but those long walks in nature and releasing, and maybe you're a journaler. If you're not a journaler, I highly recommend just like talking out loud, even if it's just to your phone, releasing what exists inside of you. I
Mm-hmm.
think is really, really important as we, work to show up the best we can for our struggling kiddos.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up because, yeah, it is so difficult. And if you don't, practice your own self-care, for me, it was, I had a really good friend that I was able to talk with. And if I didn't have her and be able to work through some of that, then I would have fell to pieces and I couldn't have best supported her, and we wouldn't be where we are now. So it's so critical. And yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, we're running out of time, and you have an amazing offer right now that I want to make sure to give you time to talk about.
Thank you. Well, and you mentioned at the beginning, I do have a podcast. I have over 500 episodes, so that's free to
Yeah.
anybody who wants to listen. I know it's crazy, 500 episodes, but there's actually more than that. But anyway, and that's in all the podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all the places. You just search for Joyful Courage and you'll find it. I have a Facebook group that's also free called Joyful Courage for Parents of Teens. And that's a really lovely place. I mean, there's over 2,000 people in there. And yet, so far, there's been nothing but solid, compassionate, encouraging support, which I really appreciate. And I take a lot of the questions from the group and turn it into content for my podcast, which is useful for me. And right now, my doors are open for my membership program. So I have a year-long membership program. It's called Living Joyful Courage. We do 2 calls a month. The first call is actually tomorrow night. And it is a workshop call. So I facilitate content. And then the second call a month is a group coaching call. So it's space for the members to come in and bring what's real and alive for them to the group, and we support. We also have 2 different hours that are open office hours where I'm just basically on Zoom and available. Members get quarterly one-on-one calls with me. We have a community space similar to a Facebook group, but on a different app that's a forum. It's such a special group. Like I said, doors are open right now. You can find out more at besproutable.com/LJC. So right now you can find out more information about the membership. I also do, like Christina does, I do one-on-one coaching with parents. I speak, I speak to parent communities at schools and community centers. And yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways to connect
And
with
an amazing book. You forgot the amazing
I
book.
wrote the book. I wrote a book, not the book, but I wrote a book. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Joyful Courage, Calming the Drama
Yeah.
and Taking Control of Your Parenting Journey. And it's, the book is really a lot about that internal experience.
Yeah.
I have a process called the 3Bs, breath, body, balcony, that guides parents just through their own self-regulation. I think, most of the challenges that we are in with our teens come back to, it's relationship challenges and it's self-regulation challenges. So we can just focus on those two things. A lot of what is hard about raising teenagers, stops being so hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It was such a great conversation. And if you enjoyed today's discussion, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, review, so we can get out in front of other parents that are needing some guidance or just some support to know that they're not alone. So, and don't forget to connect with me on social media and my website, which is empoweredparenting.family. And also, I wrote a book too. It's called The Power of Everyday Grace, Parenting Teens with Depression. So it's available on Amazon. So please grab your copy. And thanks for tuning in. Just remember that every challenge is an opportunity, and together we can kick those troubles to the curb. So until next time, take care and keep the conversation going. Bye-bye.
This has been Kicking Your Teens' Troubles to the Curb with host Christina Nation. Tune in each week as Christina features expert interviews, real-life stories, and practical strategies that empower parents to connect with their teens and effectively address their struggles. Here, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.